Hello, everyone. Welcome to XenTegra on Air podcast series. I'm your host Indrajeet Ghorpade, and I have with me Mr. Simon Townsend. Hey, hi, Simon.
Good morning, good afternoon. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I am very good, very good. I think we're recording this on a Friday. The
Yeah.
sun is shine. The sun is shining. It's near the end of the week. Um, I actually have, funnily enough, I have my son is currently in Latvia playing basketball this weekend.
Okay.
My
That's
one of my daughters is away. My wife is away. So I'm going to have a very, very quiet weekend with my third child and the dog. So I'm looking forward to having a restful weekend. You? How's your week been?
Yeah, it was a little busy week. A lot of things, like a lot of things are going on. Couple of new IGEL opportunities even. So working on those techno-commercial discussions as well as like couple of POCs which we successfully completed and like now following up with the customers for the next course of action. So there were a lot of actions happening specifically with IGEL as a solution to our customers, and at least it is like overall those discussions are going to the next step, right? So we completed the technical evaluation POCs, and now we are like in a phase to discuss on the commercials. So it's a good
Yeah,
week for me. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. It's been some interesting things in the news this week as well. Two things I'll share. I'm sure some people have seen the news this morning, um, which follows on from a Broadcom earnings call, right? Uh,
Yep.
and there's been lots of speculation about what
Yep.
is going to happen with the VMware EUC business, but it does look like they're going to the official word at the moment is they're going to divest in their end user compute business, which I think
Okay.
just means that they're not getting rid of it. They're going to continue with it, but their investment obviously is in more of their traditional business. So I think that's obviously going to generate a large amount of conversation over the next couple of weeks,
Yep.
um, in both customers and partners alike about what's going to happen with things like VMware Horizon, VMware Workspace ONE, Carbon Black, for instance. Um, but I'll be honest with you, I can't see anybody, suddenly, you know, ditching their technology in the short term. But it obviously just shows that these times are changing. Um, and I
Yep.
think with people like AWS providing desktop as a service and cloud PC and Windows 365, um, you know, to your point, things seem to be getting a little bit busier in end user compute at the moment. We're definitely seeing more and more IGEL projects. You're seeing more and more IGEL projects kick off.
Yep.
Um, and I think the reason for that is that people are preparing themselves
Yep.
um, for where they may move in 6, 12, 18 months time, right? They're rethinking their strategies.
Yep.
Um, and that was another piece of news I saw this morning, actually. I was just on LinkedIn about 15 minutes ago before we started this call. And I think it was the Register again that had done a post on Windows 10. Um, and I can't remember whether it was 72 or 73% of desktop PCs out there are still running um, Windows 10, right?
Oh,
And they were sort of talking about Windows 10 going end of life in October and about how far away it
yeah.
was, but actually it's not that far away. Um, but I think that all of this is driving. Um, it's not necessarily driving change right now, but it's driving a rethink. And I think end user compute is going to get very, very exciting in 2024, as I've said many, many a times. But I think all of these things coming together, right? Citrix have made some announcements this week around their CUCGs. I don't know whether their community groups as well. So looks like they're not dying, but they're going to get rethought and rebranded. So it looks like we're going to have
Yep.
some more end user computing events to go to in 2024. And then you've got the Citrix thing, you've got the Microsoft migration thing. As I said last week, I think we've got a lot of customers now that are looking at things like Windows 365 Frontline,
Yep.
which is obviously a slightly more cost-effective option of getting Windows 365 Cloud PC. So yeah, it's all change at the moment, all change at the moment, but it keeps us busy, doesn't it, Indrajeet? Keeps us busy.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. And like I think next year will be very much interesting for us, right? Like as customers have already started looking out in their existing infrastructure and like started like working on the policy specifically for their EUC and user
Hmm.
computing space, right? So next year will be interesting for all of us, like with a lot of
Yeah,
things to do. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
And definitely it will be a great year. 2024 will be a great year for EUC space.
Yeah. How do you I mean you guys are a ServiceNow partner as well, right?
Yeah,
How do you see that world coming together? Because I've said for a long time that the guys in shouldn't say that, sorry, the people in EUC, the EUC professionals have sort of historically sat in their bubble,
yeah.
and the service management people have sat in their bubble, and the security teams have sat in their bubble. Do you see some of that starting to come together?
Yeah. So on that, even we are working on couple of projects which are it is kind of a built solution along with ServiceNow, where right, say for example, for any user onboarding, right, user like any customer with their media infrastructure, those endpoints, and like all those configuration. So right, we are even working on like couple of like projects along with ServiceNow, where right automating the entire process right of onboarding a new user right from ServiceNow. Like one ticket will be raised, and then like all those activities or like all those tasks which needs to be performed by the IT admin or like IT department, those will
Yeah,
be automated. Those will be delegated to the respective team. Like say for example, the VDI team for provisioning those VDI instances, then like and the hardware team to provision those hardware or keep those hardware ready. And like in a single ticket, all those that overall flow will be managed, and that user will get that his device as well as all his credentials in a seamless manner. So
yeah,
that is one thing we are already working on, and like there
yeah.
are like discussions with the all the parties which are involved, like IGEL, ServiceNow, VDI vendors like Citrix, VMware,
Hmm.
and so on. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Do you do anything with Okta as well?
With Okta,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
So
yeah, yeah.
wherever there is a the customer is looking out for any multi-factor authentication, yes, it is even the part of that entire integration. So the
Hmm.
physical endpoint, then the VDI, along with and the authentication to that VDI with a multi-factor authentication. Yes, so like it totally depends on the customer like infrastructure or the need, but we are creating a kind of a blueprint or like kind of a framework where these solutions like multi-factor authentication with Okta can be added, but like there'll be a base framework, like because hardware is anyways required, and the specific apps or desktops are like required to the users. So those things are and like overall get delivering the credentials to the users. So all those things like will be in the blueprint, but additional tool sets like say for example, customers using some specific multi-factor authentication tool, right? Okta, or like maybe some
Yeah,
kind of a integration with a like hardware token or right something like that, or maybe like smart cards. So all those things will be can be integrated in this entire framework. But like right now we are working right what are basic things which are needed, and we are open to for the integration wherever there is a specific tool or specific technology customer want to integrate.
yeah, yeah. It's interesting, isn't it? I mean, we could probably spend an hour talking about this alone, but I know we want to talk about this new value calculator that I've been talking to you about recently. So I'm going to show you
Yeah,
some of that in a sec. But the onboarding process, I think, has been a conversation I've been having for quite some time with
yeah,
people, right? It's not, I would suggest onboarding new employees is new. Um, but I don't think enough people have done it, and enough people have done it to the best of their ability. And I think, you know, you can sort of talk about COVID, and you can sort of talk about how we were in a bit of a panic and everyone just bought everybody laptops and had to try and get them out there, and they manually over time got people to connect in. But it really is important when a new employee comes into your organization, you know, let's be honest, that's an investment that your organization has made in that person, and
Yeah,
the organization needs that person to be productive as quickly as possible. And it
yeah,
doesn't matter whether, um, you're a business development manager, whether you're working in a call center, whether you're a VP, or even whether you're an exec level, right?
yeah,
The way in which you can onboard a new employee is super, super important. And
yeah,
I think it's even more important as the younger generations come into our organizations. You know, it's really, really nice if you can send someone, let's say an endpoint, a laptop or whatever it is, and in a frictionless way, that employee can get up and running within minutes, right?
yeah,
Or
yeah,
tens of minutes, not hours or days, right? And I see it. I see it in so many organizations, and it's something even at IGEL, right? We're constantly trying to reevaluate as new people come on board. We're constantly trying to reevaluate. Could we have done things better, right? Could we have enabled people faster, quicker? And can that be done by technology? Can that be done by a better process, et cetera, et cetera? So, you know, and I do think, whether it's service management and end user compute, whether it's automation, whether it's new technology like onboarding services. And I mean, Microsoft's had a product, Autopilot, for a while. IGEL's now got a product that does that, but there's a lot more that can go into it to improve that. So yeah,
yeah,
interesting. That sort of lends itself to, I suppose, digital experience management a little bit, and also how important that experience is the day the person starts, or in fact before the person even starts, right? It's,
yeah.
you may not be starting a job for a couple of weeks, but yeah. Anyway, interesting.
Yeah, and
Interesting.
with IGEL, it is very much like anyways, like deployment of like IGEL endpoint or like provisioning IGEL endpoint is kind of a on the fly process, right? It is hardly couple of minutes job, right? Whatever maybe the number of endpoint end user devices, it is kind of a like couple of minutes job. So with IGEL, majority of the so major factor, right, for this provisioning and like overall this like I'll say framework, IGEL actually like on a like very core role or like it's very important in this particular overall process because the deployment of OS itself is that seamless and that easy and so fast, which actually helps us like
Yeah.
in designing or this designing this framework.
Yeah. It's actually a project that I've been working on, and hopefully will go live in January, Indrajeet, which is we're going to change how people evaluate iGel. So, you know, lots of people will come to us and say, "Can you help us?" No problem. Lots of people will come to you, "Can you help us?" No problem. But there's a lot of people who just hit our website and want to evaluate iGel OS themselves. And we're looking at changing how we do that in Q1 of next year. And we're actually going to use our own onboarding service to do that. So the vision here is that someone should be able to hit our website, download iGel, and with a predetermined username and password, actually log in for the first time. They'll hit our onboarding service, and then they will see the power of the onboarding service and the UMS and iGel OS, and they'll actually be able to experience iGel significantly easier than in the 20 plus years that we've been doing things. So
Yeah,
we're quite
yeah,
excited about that. And I think, if you think about how lots of other applications work, whether it be applications you download for work or even in your personal life, right? Being able to show someone value quicker and allow someone to interact with the application or the system a lot quicker, I think is very important. So that's something we've been working on. So watch this space on that one.
Yeah, sure. And as we discussed, right, on this onboarding process, and like even at the start, I mentioned, even you mentioned, there are a lot of customers showing interest in IGEL as a solution, and like a lot of customers are like trying for the going ahead with IGEL evaluation. But for a new customer, it is very much important to understand the value of IGEL solution. So like if they're investing in this technology, right, what benefits, what like financial benefits they'll get. So basically what cost they have to pay, what will be the return on investment, and like so is there any way, and like you mentioned about, right, we thought of like having this discussion today, right, the
Yeah,
total cost of ownership for that particular customer, and like overall return on the investment, right? So if you can just put some light on that, like if there are any tool sets, or what is the process customer should go for, or what if there are any like specific areas customer should look for, and he'll get that information, or like he can find the overall information by himself.
yeah, yeah, sure.
Yeah,
No problem at all. So
yeah,
there is a tool um, that we have invested in, and this is a tool that is available to both IGEL. It's available to you as a partner of ours, but importantly, it's also available to our prospects and our customers. And what happens is that we have a SaaS-based platform that allows us to create business cases um, per project, per customer, whatever it is. Each business case is completely separate, and we can invite people to that. So, yeah, if you and I were working on with a particular customer now, we could all three of us could collaborate on this one business case, and it allows us to work much closer with the customer and demonstrate how, for instance, iGel and other VDI or SaaS-based technologies may well start to provide a return on their investment, um, and also starts to demonstrate how much potentially people could save by changing the way that they deploy their endpoint. I've worked with a number of ROI tools in the past, and I can honestly say this is probably the best one that I've ever come across. Um, so what I'm going to do actually is I'm going to share my screen, which means that for those people that are listening, they're going to have to try and listening along. But if they're interested in seeing it, they can obviously get in touch with you or I. Um, and hopefully those other people will be watching it on YouTube. But there is a platform. It's by an organization called Ecosystems, funnily enough, and this is something that we've worked with them on. And what basically happens is that I can create this business case that can help demonstrate um, the types of savings
yep,
and benefits that iGel can bring. So, we could we could put in here. Let's pretend that can't spell it correctly. There we go. XenTegra, right, has got a particular, right, XenTegra customer A as an example, right?
yeah,
And we want to sort of talk about, what the TCO is for deploying iGel as an example. I can come down here and I can just select the default template as an example. And then I can go and create that document. And what happens very simply is that it then asks for a number of assumptions and values. And again,
yeah,
this is where being able to invite the customer via email to get
yeah,
them to log on to this platform as well becomes very, very important. And you don't need to fill out all of the information. This is the other beauty of this tool, right? You don't need to fill out all of the information. You can just be very selective
yeah,
with what is relevant for the organization. But let's just say that we're looking at, we're going to look at 1,000 1,000 desktops, and in fact, of those 1,000 desktops, all of them are laptops. So we're looking at 1,000 there, and then the total number of endpoints that we're also looking at converting to iGel is also going to be at 1,000 as well. Then we can start to put into here, okay, well, the total number of endpoints that we've got, as I said, why is that not working? We've got a total number of endpoints there is working. We can actually then start to say, okay, well, how much is a typical endpoint? How much is a typical laptop? What is the typical cost of acquiring that? So, and again, you can put this in different currencies. So we could put this in a local currency for you completely. In fact, if I let's just make that 0, and then I've just got, there we go. Right, that makes a lot more sense. So we've got 1,000 laptops, and the typical cost of a laptop, I don't know, might be $1,200, right? So, and then how long is that typically going to last for? Is it going to last for 3 years? Is it going to last for 4 years, 5 years, whatever it might be? Many organizations know this, right? If they're deploying thin clients, they typically know how much they're paying for thin clients. They typically know the average cost of their corporate desktop, the average cost of their corporate laptop. So we can make some of these key assumptions. And then what we do is we then start to come in and we're able to break down in the value calculator the areas that we believe that we can provide benefit by someone moving to IGEL. So as a real simple example, if an organization was looking at deploying 1,000 new laptops next year because they're buying Windows 11, but instead decided to convert those devices to IGEL, what we basically do is we're working out, okay, how many devices have you got? What was the cost of buying those desktops? What's the cost of deploying them minus the cost of IGEL? So very, very quickly here, you can see that, okay, straight away, if we were to repurpose 1,000 devices that the customer already has today, instead of buying new, we believe that we might be able to save somewhere in the region of 1.3 million straight away there. We're not looking at how much money we're saving from an operational point of view. We're not looking at how much savings we're going to get from improving employee productivity. We've not even discussed how much we might save because it's more secure, or how much we'll save because of the additional software we don't need to buy. And we've not yet switched on how much carbon footprint we're going to save from a sustainability point of view. Just very, very simply, repurpose 1,000 laptops instead of buying new. This tool immediately comes out with a calculation for you. If you go into that calculation, you can then start to break that down, and all of these fields become editable. So, how much does it typically cost to image an endpoint? How much is the software cost per piece per piece of hardware? How many of those laptops were there? In this particular case, as we said, there was 1,000 laptops, $1,200 each. They were going to last for 4 years. We were going to spend some money on imaging. We were going to spend some time on managing those devices. If we converted those devices instead, we're looking at saving 456,000 in the first year, the second year, and then in the third year. But at the same time, every customer is different. So, we may well have a customer who, instead of wanting to just repurpose all of their existing devices, they may actually need to buy some new hardware. So I've got another good example here where I've got a customer at the moment that doesn't want to extend the life of their existing PC. So I'm going to turn that one off. And instead, what they've said is, instead of buying 1,000 i9 laptops next year that cost $2,000, they can actually go and buy the Lenovo L14 or the LG Gram or the HP. They can buy a laptop, a business grade laptop, but they can actually get that laptop with an i3 and an i5 processor, 4 or 8 gigabytes of RAM, and it only costs them 600. So I can actually put those types of details in, and I can say, look, even considering the fact that you may look at buying new hardware, the hardware cost of that new hardware is actually going to come down. We can actually bring you down from a £2,000, $2,000 device down to a $1,000 device.
Yeah.
So there's a couple of ways in which we can play with that. And then the conversation sort of goes on. So you start to talk to the customer and you start to say, okay, well, is there anything else we can do that can help demonstrate the value that moving from Windows on the endpoint to IGEL on the endpoint can bring? Software savings might be one of those, right? Are you currently using a VPN technology? Will you need to use a VPN technology moving forward? How much are you spending on
Yeah.
that VPN technology at the moment? Maybe it's not as high as $150. Maybe everyone's getting their VPN software for $10 a user. Okay, but if you don't, if you can deploy 1,000 laptops without the need of a VPN, well, that's 1,000 times $10 that you don't need to spend.
Yeah.
It may well be that you've got device encryption. We were working with a customer the other day, and they had a particular type of device encryption on their Windows estate. They had some form of DLP software. Again, if you move to IGEL, you don't need a lot of the agents that
Yeah.
you would typically deploy on a Windows device. So I can get rid of my endpoint protection. I can get rid of perhaps my antivirus. And I might come into here and I say, okay, well, yeah, how much am I paying for antivirus, for instance? Maybe I'm paying, $15 a user per year, whatever it might be. I can put that into the calculator as well. And as you can see, I can start to turn a lot of these off and on so that can be quite granular.
Yeah.
90% of the deployments that you and I do, Indrajeet, they don't put anything on the IGEL device, right? They're happy with
Yeah.
the fact that IGEL is very secure, so they don't put AV on it. They don't have a CrowdStrike on it. They don't have DLP. They don't have encryption. But I can tell you that there might be another customer who says, no, actually, I still want to put the CrowdStrike agent on my endpoints, or I still want to deploy the Netscope agent on my endpoints. So we just choose to either include or exclude that. And so now all of a sudden, we've not just got hardware savings, but we've got some software savings as well. Every organization has got an idea of how much a ransomware attack is going to cost them. So is there an amount of money that we can attribute to how much time it takes to recover from a ransomware attack,
Yeah.
or
Definitely.
what the cause of that is? If you go into healthcare, you know, in particularly in healthcare, clinicians particularly are constantly logging in, logging off. And if they're not using technologies like IGEL, Improvata, and desktop virtualization, some of their logons could be 2 minutes, 3 minutes, 4 minutes long. And that's not just affecting patient care, but that means you've then got an unproductive clinician that's working. Maybe there's a way in which we can actually convert that. That could be how many more patients that we can see. And maybe that's a value to the business.
Yeah.
Maybe it's a case of how much time we could save, right? In terms of if I can actually reduce the log on, there's 240 working days in the year, and I know that the average person is getting paid an amount of money. I can actually start to reduce that down, and I can actually put a numerical value on that, right? I can actually
Yeah.
say, because Simon Townsend is able to log on faster every single day, I can actually put a value on that. There's the operational cost. I think you know this better than anyone, right? IGEL doesn't need patching every other Tuesday. It doesn't need to be tested. It doesn't need all of the remote devices to VPN in to then get the updates. The
Yeah.
way in which our updates work is significantly smoother. I mean, I think I've said before, right? I deploy applications down to IGEL devices over 4G connections. There's just a lot less endpoint management. One of the biggest costs I think any IT organization faces is the cost of endpoint management. So can we start to look at that? How much is it costing you to support a Windows device versus an IGEL device? And each of these, by the way, has got a reference point in it. So if the customer doesn't know, we've always got a reference point, an industry value that we can put in. So, for instance, there was a Tolly report done some time ago now that looked at what was the cost of managing a Windows device, $35 per month per
Yeah.
user. versus the cost of managing an IGEL device. And they equated that at about $12 per user per month. So immediately you can see there that there's a, $19, $20 saving, whatever it might be, per user per month that we can also put into this. And then obviously we can then finish up with something like sustainability. Every new laptop that you don't need to buy is going to save you an amount of, it's going to reduce your carbon footprint. And
Correct.
in addition, iGel has got that ability to reduce the power. So a laptop running iGel will typically consume about 30-40% less power than a device that's running Windows. So we put all of that in, and what we end up with is obviously a summary. And it can be broken down into these various different areas. How much are we saving on hardware? How are we improving employee experience? What are we doing from a sustainability point of view? Is there software savings to be had, and is there some operational costs? And the really nice thing then is when we then go to say create outputs, we take that information and it will then produce you a PowerPoint presentation, an executive summary in PowerPoint, or just a one pager in a PowerPoint stroke PDF format. So this helps customers as well, right? This isn't about iGel trying to convince someone to buy iGel licenses. This is about helping our customers who understand what the technology can bring, but helping them create a business case for their business that
Yeah.
can be read by the CIO, the CFO, whoever it might be, to say, look, there are some extremely tangible benefits for moving and utilizing iGel. And to be honest with you, in most cases, the hardware savings alone are going to, you know, pay for iGel and also free up a considerable amount of budget because you're not needing to buy net new hardware. You know as well as I do, organizations that deploy iGel will typically keep their devices for 5 to 7 years as opposed to 3 to 4 years.
Yeah.
And that alone is going to save them a huge amount of money. And as one of the questions I'm speaking to a lot of customers about at the moment is, what is your spend on hardware next year? We're just about to see a Windows 10 to Windows 11 migration come. What is the line
Yeah.
item for buying new hardware, and what would it mean if we could reduce that? Because it adds up so quickly, Indrajeet. If you can get a laptop for £700 or $700, then that's great.
Yeah.
But if you've got to buy 1,000 of them or 2,000 of them over the next couple of years, then it adds up very, very quickly. And I think the world, you've got the summit going on at the moment, the sustainability summit, right? Going on at where all the world leaders are talking about what we can do in terms of helping save the planet. We've just got to break the norm, right? People are using iPhones and iPads and, dare I even say, Apple devices for a lot longer. We should be doing the same with our Windows desktop estate, or our laptops and our PCs as well. So anyway, that
Yeah.
was a very quick overview of that. I probably spoke for too long, so I apologize, but hopefully that
That's
gives
absolutely fine.
hopefully that gives you and the listeners an idea that we we don't just want to show off our technology and our innovation. We actually want to help people create business cases and demonstrate how we can actually have a positive impact to the budget and also sustainability.
Yeah, this is actually a great tool. Though like we are on a podcast and like you demonstrated in a like live environment with a use case, so maybe that will be visible to our listeners when we upload these videos on YouTube channel or like on the
Yeah,
social media, so they can able to see it. But yes, right, this is very much helpful because like majority of the times, couple of convincing the customers, like those customers with those like working on Windows devices and like very much comfortable with Windows devices, and they are not at all thinking of changing to a Linux-based operating system, or they never tried a Linux-based operating system, endpoint operating system. this is actually a very good thing. There are a lot of ways, on the like overall the return on investment, sustainability, the overall limited administration, total cost of resources, right? So everything we can present, at least we'll get some outcome, right, as per the inputs customer or like they enter or like we enter on behalf of them. And it is actually giving a uh, true scenario, like this is actually giving the true picture, right, or like a realistic picture where customer can then like present this. And like best part, as you said, right, that we can uh, export the report in the form of PPT or a PDF file, and that can be presented to the management, or like they can use it for their internal use. They can present it to the management team, and it is very easy for we as a partner as well as for customers as well to convince or to showcase the overall value proposition of IGEL to their management.
Exactly, exactly that. It's actually been used to date. We've been test driving it, shall we say, um, and using it in anger in some regions for almost 12 months. Um, and there's about of significant size, I can tell you, there's probably about 250 customers who have gone through this. Um, and it's quite interesting to watch it as well, because not only do we send an email to one customer contact to collaborate on the document, you'll end up the most successful ones are where we actually have multiple people dialed in. So we had a customer not so long ago who had 9 different people working on that document. They had someone from the security team, a couple of people from end
Yeah,
user compute, people that were deploying desktop virtualization. They they took it and they ran with it and they collaborated with it. And you know, the savings can, as I said, can be quite phenomenal. So yeah, it's a really good. I think it's a really good tool. Obviously, it needs a little bit of education about how to move things around and where to put values and stuff. But I think it's fairly intuitive. It allows us to collaborate with partners and customers alike. And ultimately, it's the customer's document, not our document. So if it helps, and people would like to get more information about that, obviously contact you, and we can then introduce them to that tool.
yeah. This is actually great. Because it gives a lot of insight, and like it is good for us as well as the end customers and the listeners. They can utilize it like whenever they see or they themselves or like their customers want to evaluate IGEL as a solution. So before we conclude, right, because I think we are done with
Hmm.
today's discussion, like we covered the topic. Before we conclude, if you can just, because we shared the screen, but like for our listeners, if you can repeat the URL, right, verbally, right, what is the URL customers or our listeners should go for, and then they can start working on the TCU calculation.
So there isn't actually a well, let me say this first of all. So anybody out there can go to igel.com, and on igel.com, from the menu, there is a TCO, a very high level TCO calculator. It's under the resources section. So if you go to igel.com/TCO calculator, you can actually, on the website, put some numbers in, and it'll give you a very high level overview of what potentially the TCO might be for deploying iGel. But
Yep.
that is literally just a very basic web version. If you want access to what I just showed and the value calculator that talks about all of those other areas of value in terms of how's it going to improve user experience and sustainability, risk mitigation, all that sort of stuff, then there's no URL for anybody to go to. It's on an invite basis. So you work with us. We create that document, and then what we'll
Okay.
do is we'll invite the customer over email, and they just get an email with a username and a password, and then they can log on to their specific business case.
Yeah, that's good, right? It is good to know for every one of us, right? Even the listeners. So if anyone is interested, like to evaluate or to look like to see the value proposition of IGEL as a solution, they can reach out to us anytime, either you or me. We are available on LinkedIn, any social media, like even other social media channels, and even right on our emails. And they can reach out to us, and like maybe we can send them the invite for the value calculator or like a TCO calculator basically, and they can actually enter their data, specific data, and they'll get those results which they can present internally to their like managers or like the management team, and then they can actually explain them like what is the value going ahead with IGEL.
Exactly that. Yeah, that is exactly that. Yeah.
Okay, I think this was a good like discussion, right? And I think it will be kind of informative new information to our listeners. And I think many of them will utilize this at least in whoever is interested, because like we covered a lot of things about IGEL. We like covered a lot of interesting things, security part, a lot of like benefits of IGELs. So IGEL. So I think whoever is interested, please reach out to us, and like maybe you can actually evaluate IGEL as a solution for your environment. All right, and then you can see the value, or like you can at least see those value or those outcomes out of IGEL solution, and then we are there to help you in the demonstration or POC of IGEL solution. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Good.
Okay.
Good.
Yeah.
So next week we are going to try and get our VP of Product Management onto the podcast. So that should be a an interesting one. And then I think the following week we're going to try and get our sales engineering manager from the region on the call as well. So try and get a few different people on the call over the next couple of weeks. Correct?
Yeah, that's actually a plan, and like it is good thing that maybe though they like the product manager and the sales engineering team, even they'll add their additional inputs on the discussions which we are doing, or like some new things, right? They can even like give it to us or like discuss with us, and like which will even helpful for our listeners. So yes, so next two episodes will be like not only two of us, there'll be one more or like two more additional members in this podcast, and like we'll talk little in details about different aspects of hygiene.
Perfect. Good stuff.
Yeah,
All right. Well, listen,
yeah,
enjoy the rest of your week. Thanks to the listeners for tuning in. Always a pleasure.
yeah. Happy weekend to you, and like catch you next week. Thank you so much for your time, Simon.
Thank you. See you soon.
See you soon. Bye.